Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. On 18th March, Tuesday, a much awaited phone call happened between President Trump and President Vladimir Putin, which raised huge hopes in many of us for a possible ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. The outcome of the phone call was just a partial ceasefire on only energy infrastructures, which was a huge disappointment for many. What does Ukraine think about this phone call? Does this small step create any hopes for an end to this war anytime soon? What are Ukraine's thoughts for a viable security guarantee, which has been the center of discussion for most of the peace talks recently? And what has this war meant for Ukraine in the past 3 years? To talk more on this, we have with us today a very special guest, Ukrainian Ambassador to DRC, Dr. Vasyl Hamianin.
First point, we're really grateful to the United States of America. We're grateful to the President Donald Trump. At the moment, every day, I repeat, many hours a day, Ukrainian civilian objects, infrastructural objects, civilian infrastructural objects, hospitals and everything, maternity houses and schools, and the energy infrastructure are under attack. It's non-stop attack. I repeat, non-stop attack. Putin did not do anything to stop the bombardments of Ukraine.
So what would be your strategy?
The whole world has investments into mining business in the whole world. Business does not create a shield against the aggression.
The Western countries have given a military aid to Ukraine to support it, but in effect, what has happened is Ukraine has got destroyed as a country. So do you think anything that is written in a document or signed in a document in terms of a security guarantee could actually assure a safety for Ukraine in future?
The rebuilding of the state will take decades. It looks nice, but it's dangerous. Leave him alone. That's what we want from Russia to think about Ukraine. Honey badger, leave him alone. We don't want the wasp, the hornet, the bees, beehoove. Oh, no, it's Ukrainians. Come on, we don't. That's the impression we should leave to every Russian.
There's a saying that you cannot wish away your neighbors. So Russia is always going to be your neighbors. Do you think at any point of time you would consider making a peace in some form in terms of trade or something with Russia? Because that would inevitably have to be done. You cannot keep your enmity forever to be safe.
Every Molotov cocktail that destroyed Russian tanks or the armored vehicles or just Russians in the first months, or weeks and months of the war, it was a collective product of the society, of the nation. From the children like of 7 years, women, disabled, retired, everyone. So Russians never occupied Kharkiv or Sumy or Chernihiv or Mykolaiv or Odessa, never. And in here, the huge contribution is by our army, and a huge contribution, no less than that, by our civilians, volunteers, and like commoners, just commoners, unarmed, untrained guys who were like IT managers, like really top IT managers. In no time, in a couple of days, they organized production of the, drones, kamikaze drones, in huge numbers. They just build it from the kids' toys, like you play with these toys, small things. They make it this explosive packages, and bam, explode, and then they grew up into serious regiments, serious units of the army. After the war is over, it will be painful process of bringing the kids back.
So, Ambassador Vasyl Hamianin, a great pleasure to have you again on my show. Thanks so much for coming on this interview at such a critical time in your country, and there's a lot that is there to discuss at the moment.
But of course, Jaya, it's a great pleasure for me too. We haven't been communicating for 2.5, 3 years. And yes, that's a great pleasure and an honor for me to be your guest once again.
My honor too. But I'll start with the recent ceasefire because that's the most important topic people want to hear about. So on 11th March, Ukraine signed a ceasefire, a total ceasefire deal of land, air, and sea unconditionally. 1 week, Russia was quiet about it, and on 18th March, there was a phone call between President Trump and President Vladimir Putin, according to which there was an agreement for a partial ceasefire of only energy infrastructures. A small step, but how significant do you consider it in terms of any relief, a hope for a long-term peace deal or an end to this war?
It's a good question. I can imagine everybody is concerned about that. Well, half of the world definitely yes. I have to draw your attention to 2 points. First point, we're really grateful to the United States of America. We're grateful to the President Donald Trump and the team which is working on the ceasefire and hopefully working on the finalizing, the final end of the war, right? So ceasefire is just like an interim measure that will not be final. And we are looking for, the whole Ukraine is looking forward to end the war ultimately, once and forever, yeah.
So you think this is a
the word
good step for that? Do you think even this partial ceasefire is a good step towards that?
No, I mean, any step is good. I mean, again, I'm grateful for the efforts. At least there are some efforts, right? So all people think differently. Some people think that the war can be ended this way or that way, but any constructive efforts are welcome, and we are grateful again for all of that to the people who help. However, you can follow the news every day. The Shahed drones, the missiles, the bombs are dropping on our heads every day, non-stop. Every few hours, we'll have the air signal, air alarm, and we like hiding, and we are trying to watch where it's going, so to escape. Yeah. So, did Russia accept it? No. Did Russia do anything at all? No. Because what we talk and what we do, what we say and what we do, it could be very different things if it comes to the dictators.
Right. See, I have to ask you something here. Actually, the readout from the White House after the call with Putin was that it is a ceasefire for energy and infrastructure. And this point was reiterated by Steve Witkoff in an interview I saw of him in Bloomberg TV on Wednesday, where he said it's not just energy infrastructure, but it is energy infrastructure and civil infrastructure. And the statement that came out from Russia was energy infrastructure, not just and not energy and infrastructure. So I want to understand from you, what does the spirit of the ceasefire mean? Is it just energy infrastructure, or energy infrastructure and all civil infrastructure?
But that's, I think, that's a question for the analysts and for definitely for the statespeople who are sitting in the high cabinets to answer you precisely what it means. Because in my understanding, what is energy infrastructure? This is anything that can be related or connected with the energy supplies to the civilians, right? So that would be like, afterward it comes down to electricity supplies, heating, central heating, water supplies, and everything. What I know is that the last 2 days, a few energy equipment, energy objects were damaged badly by Putin's bombardments. In Kropivnitsky, in Odessa, and somewhere else, it's like every day. Yeah? Again, and you say, and the objects of infrastructure, right? What it means, the objects of infrastructure. Does it mean the schools? Does it mean hospitals? Does it mean residentials? That all is under attack. All of those are under attack. So my understanding, maybe I get it wrong, maybe I get it wrong, but my understanding is that we can still make attacks on the military objects and the objects that related to the financing or feeding up the army, the military. That's if I get it right. That's my understanding. All the rest are not supposed to be damaged, right? But at the moment, every day, I repeat, many hours a day, Ukrainian civilian objects, infrastructural objects, civilian infrastructural objects, hospitals and everything, maternity houses and schools, and the energy infrastructure are under attack.
See, there was an attack that same day after the phone call, a few hours after the phone call at a hospital in Sumy. But since then, I mean, it was said that the drones were already in progress. But since that day, after that day, do you think there has been a civil infrastructure and energy infrastructure? Can you give some sites,
It's
some
not that I
examples?
think. I tell you that every day since they what? When
Till
they
today, it is happening.
they had the phone call like what on Monday, no?
Tuesday.
Now today is Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, every day.
Okay.
It's
So,
non-stop attack. I repeat, non-stop attack. Putin did not do anything to stop the bombardments of Ukraine.
so what would be your strategy? Are you going to, because you have struck also in Russia's, one of the bombing sites in Russia, but what will be your strategy? Are you going to follow through with this ceasefire?
Listen, I'm not the president of Ukraine and I'm not the foreign minister. So this is the strategy that the head of state, head of government, the parliament of Ukraine, and the head of diplomatic service of Ukraine, head of the minister of defense of Ukraine, all the cabinet would decide. And maybe it's good that I don't know the closer plans. What I can think is, I mean, come on, what we do, we are defending against the attack. That's what we have been doing for the last three years. That's it. Well, we are open for dialogue, and I think that, well, you can, again, this is open news. This is no mystery. So we are ready to keep on the dialogue, and there will be dialogue between the American delegation, between the Ukrainian delegation, and I don't know about the Russians, but they always cheat. So Russians are cheaters. I don't know if they have this plan to follow the discussion, or just follow just the discussion and doing nothing. I don't know. These are cheaters that cannot be trusted.
I'll come to the next question, which is very important about the security guarantees. And before I ask the question, I'll lay down a fact for the audience, and that is, on 5th December 1994, a agreement was signed, a memorandum was signed between Russia, Ukraine, UK, and US, according to which territorial security guarantee was assured for Ukraine if Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal, which was the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world that Ukraine had. Ukraine gave up its arsenal, but in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, and today it is said that about 20% more of Ukrainian territory has been annexed by Russia. The Western countries have given a military aid to Ukraine to support it, but in effect, what has happened is Ukraine has got destroyed as a country. So do you think anything that is written in a document or signed in a document in terms of a security guarantee could actually assure a safety for Ukraine in future? Or what is in your mind a framework that could actually work that can guarantee a safety for Ukraine?
You see, this is a question which I would like to answer in a bigger scale, because people just forget about what happened a few years ago, and maybe like 100 years ago. If you look at the situation before the Second World War, right? And don't forget, the gap between two world wars was like what, 30 years? It was like nothing, like one generation, or less than two generations. And before that, the League of Nations was like useless. It was not not capable of stopping the aggressor, of preventing the war and dealing with the war afterwards. So perhaps in so many years, the situation, the reality repeats itself. Perhaps we need some serious revision of the world, like the world mechanisms, the global mechanisms and instruments that can effectively prevent the wars and effectively deal with the aggressors if this ever happens. I think these mechanisms don't work, simply.
So we don't think that the world is going to change anytime soon hugely. So under the current circumstances that are there in terms of the rule of the land and the UN Security Council, who is sitting there, how do you think any document signing is going to create a security guarantee at all?
Okay, this security, regarding the security guarantees that can be signed and can be done, I think that the best of best, the queen of the guarantees will be the exception of Ukraine into the NATO. That will be
But that has been ruled out by America's statement itself.
Exactly. So well, meanwhile, in the short term, maybe short term and middle term, there can be bilateral agreements between Ukraine and the states. Some agreements we have between the United States and, let's say, Taiwan, or let's say United States and Japan, or maybe United States and the Republic of Korea. I don't know. Yeah. So there is some agreement that if anything, then what? So there can be some bilateral things, bilateral agreements that can work. In any case, I think it's my personal belief.
But that is troops on the ground. With Japan, it's troops on the ground. That is also something that is being ruled out.
There can be different things, right? So it can be different things. Listen, for Ukraine, if you imagine closing the skies will be safe. And this is possible. This is no need to send the troops on the ground.
Yeah.
Skies can be closed from the Russian attack. It can be well protected by the means of European armies, by I don't know what, by air defense, missile defense systems. That can be the great contribution into the Ukrainian security. So now we can concentrate on really like liberating our lands and things. For example,
that's a good suggestion. Yeah, a no-fly zone should have been actually implemented, but frankly, that's actually a good step that perhaps Europe could think about. I'll come to the other very talked about security guarantee that is being said is about the minerals deal. And do you think if there is actually many Ukrainians are also hopeful that if America actually ends up investing a lot in mining minerals, oil and gas in Ukraine, that would mean a lot of American investment money as well as a lot of civilian presence in Ukraine. So any attack on Ukraine will be much deterred for any country, including Russia, because it would be like an act of war against the US. Do you consider it a good enough security guarantee or something that contributes to it if it were to happen?
Okay, I think we can do fantasizing. I think we can do trying to analyze, trying to guess what it is. But look, now is like substantial part of Ukrainian land is under Russian occupation, right? It's like what, 15% or something? Like it's quite
15-20% is what people are saying.
Yeah, just huge part of Ukraine, right? Ukraine is not a small country. So can you imagine that on those in those devastated cities and villages and the lands and everything, the mines, the agricultural lands and everything, there were no European, American, I don't know, Chinese, Japanese, Canadian, whatever investments?
It was close to $1 billion. I checked, it was close to $1 billion. American investment was close to about 900 million or something, which was good, but not great. But now we are talking about perhaps $500 billion. That's the kind of stake that we are talking about. Will it make a difference?
It's the whole world. The whole world has investments into mining business in the whole world. So it's like huge network of the companies working everywhere. American companies working everywhere, and the other companies from other countries like Australia, I don't know, Japan, Indonesia, I don't know, China, they work everywhere around the globe doing this business. I mean, like it means that it can be profitable, it can be good, it can be even ecological, like, you know, like from all points of view. It can be if we sign the right contract. So that's the thing. Cooperation, investments, like industrial cooperation, high-tech is always good, always good. But
okay, so
what it will be, I mean, the idea is good, but okay, what it will be in concrete terms will depend on the agreement, will depend on the contract.
Okay, so you think that it's going to be good economically, but in terms of security guarantee, we are not very sure how much it would contribute.
Business is never like a shield against the aggression itself. This is the historical experience from the globe. If there is a business, and then so what? So business does not create a shield against the aggression.
Okay.
It generates the money to build up this shield. That's it. No, come on. If you like start doing something, right, and then the state decides that, okay, we should protect our business here, and then they start doing something to protect. They start like building up the military points, and then warning the potential aggressors that if you dare blah blah blah, that it will be equal to this blah blah blah. But this again, this is additional documents. Business itself does not mean the shield against the aggression. That's it. All the rest, it will be additional conditions, additional measures, which I'm not aware about.
Okay. I'll come to another point, another calamity that is going on parallel to this war, and it's much less talked about, and that is the abduction of Ukrainian children by Russia. The numbers that I saw is about 20,000 Ukrainian children have been abducted by Russia. The actual figures are supposed to be way more than this. So I want to understand from you, there are various reports around it that are going on. Are these children snatched away from their parents, or are they war orphans who are being taken care of by Russia?
This is a huge question, and it's a very painful issue for all the Ukrainians, for the government. About the children, it's few categories. First category is that the children who were like moving from Ukrainian territory forcefully into Russian territory with the parents, with the families. Second category is that the children were removed separately because Russians killed the families, or because they were separated from the families. That was like very usual cases that were separated. So adults go there, kids go there. And the third category is the orphans from the orphanages that were like, of course, present in the eastern part of Ukraine, on that part. So those orphanages that were not evacuated in time, like before everything started, so that they were taken to Russia. And then now it's huge and very dangerous processes that take place with these kids, Ukrainian kids, because Russians, what they do, they Russify them, Russificate them. I don't know what's the good word for that, but they do all they can to turn them into Russians, ideologically, mentally, and especially the small kids. They're just given to the families, adopted by some families, and it could be like 1 year old, 1 month old, 5 years old, even teenagers, and then they were taught that Ukraine abandoned them, and Ukraine was about to kill them, and the Russians saved them, and that's why they're here. And you have to, like be with Russia because Russia is a good country, taking care about the children, blah 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 blah. This case is that's not me that will tell the world what happens, but that's the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, that now wants at least 2 people, Putin and the so-called ombudsman for children in Russia, this Lvova, whatever, Belova, as war criminals, as committing the massive crimes against Ukrainian children, as committing the crime of abduction, of illegal deportation, etc., to Ukrainian children. That's like this decision was, I think, not easy decision for the ICC, and it was made not in 1 day, not in 1 month, not even in 1 year after the big aggression. It was made later, based on the tens of thousands of cases reported, prepared, filed, and reported to the ICC. So that's the answer. It's a tragedy.
Are they being treated well, since you are saying that they are being Russified, or they are? So you have to be able to do that. You have to treat them well and make them comfortable, isn't it? Do we know how they are being treated?
You see, the problem here is if you steal the kid and then treat him well or her well, would you be a criminal or not? Would you still be a criminal if you treat them well?
I would.
That's not a question of how they treat them. That's the first one. Second answer is very simple. how do we know what even happens to them? Because Russians do not give access, do not grant any access of any human right protection, I don't know, Amnesty International, whoever, to the kids that were stolen from Ukraine. Nobody knows what happens. Nobody knows. Maybe they are, I don't know. I don't even want to think about however badly they can be treated. I don't even think that Russians treat their kids well. Because look at the reports from Russia. I'm not talking about our reports from us. Look at the reports from Russia, what they teach them in the kindergartens, in the primary schools. They teach them to wear the military uniforms. They teach them that Ukrainians are Nazi, Ukrainians are fascists, Ukrainians should be killed. They teach them to carry the guns, like, these wooden guns or whatever, and say that all the animals of Russia will be killed, will be destroyed, and Russia is such a good country. This is fascism. This is fascism. So, I mean, they treat their own kids in this way, and definitely they are treating the Ukrainian kids who now stay in the same way. Why can anyone have doubts on that? I mean, they are proud to teach the kids how to hate Ukraine and how to hate Ukrainians. They are proud of them. They call it patriotism. They call it patriotism, right? So how can we, I mean, I'm sure that same happens with our kids. And good if those teenagers, that are can think by themselves, or the parents will tell them otherwise. But if not, I think there will be thousands of kids that will hate Ukraine and really believe that Russians are liberators, and they liberated Russian-speaking whatever from the. I mean, actually, Russia liberates people only from their homes, from their parents, and from these freedoms. That's what they liberate the people from.
How hopeful are you about being able to recover them if the war were to stop soon?
The recovery. Look, now the partner countries I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Qatar is leading on that. They are doing great job in returning, bringing kids back. The Canada is one of the main initiators of this international coalition of bringing kids back. We have the international fora and international conferences and summits which discuss and which try to do something, try to trace the kids, try to get them back from Ukraine. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially because there are no full records, and they just don't recognize it. After the victory of Ukraine, after the war is over, it will be painful process of bringing the kids back. And I guess that might be very painful for everyone, because if you are, what is the word? If they try to implant zombies into the kids' minds, and it will be very difficult to recover after that. So there will be a challenge for our society. How do we reestablish, relink these kids, reintegrate them into the society they belong to? It'll be the big challenge.
Yeah, a very painful thing that's happening.
It is.
I'd like to ask you something. See, there's a saying that the first casualty in a war is truth. There has been a lot of propaganda that has been running. And do you want to say some of them which has been most damaging for your country, which has been believed by people, something that you want to clear out?
The result of lies is always human lives. Mm-hmm. Russia lies, Ukrainian die. That's a direct linkage to the cause and the consequences. But when Russians say, well, we are the Ukrainians were damaging Donbass for 8 years. We came to liberate Ukraine. We never bombard any Ukrainian cities. We never kill any civilians. We never damage any Ukrainian energy infrastructure. It's all lies, right? We We didn't even attack Ukraine. That was the like response and self-defense and whatever they say. This is outrageous, and that leads to the very ugly reactions from some countries of the world, right? Here there is the victim, here is the aggressor, and here is the someone watching it, right? So victim says, help me, he's killing me. And this guy says, oh my God, yes, of course, we're humans, we should help you. And while he's giving something, or like to protect him, says, oh, look, he attacked me first. And look, there is a grenade in his hands, and maybe there is a stick. Look, he's going to kill me in turn. And I say, oh, wait a moment, maybe I didn't get it right. And oh my God, that's what is going on with Ukrainian propaganda and lies. That's why so many countries say, oh, we really don't know. Look, how do we vote in this UN resolution? We don't know. Maybe it's not so simple. Maybe it's not so straight, right? Maybe we should think about Russian concerns, think about blah, 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 blah. So that's the problem, not just with us. That's the problem with most of the wars that take place in today's world. Most of the wars.
That's also true. There's a huge information war parallel to the war. I'd like to ask you this. God willing, if this war were to end anytime soon, how long do you think it would practically take for Ukraine to come back to a normalcy? And what has been one of the most challenging damages which would be most difficult for you to overcome?
The rebuilding of the state will take decades.
You mean the administration or the
I mean the
infrastructure,
state, right? So everything. If we talk about the building the factories, rebuilding the cities, it will be years. It's not a big problem. So that I mean, like there is enough funds and money and investments in the world to rebuild any country that is damaged in no time, literally. Reintegration of the militaries, of the soldiers, the re-establishment of all the social links within the society. Then how do we get our citizens back in Ukraine? There are like 7 million or something. Like how do we make them come back? Because that's our demography, that's our country, that's our people, right? And we understand that might not all the people will come back. Yeah. Then how do we deal with the old problems, like some corruption, some I don't know, not perfect structure of governance, businesses and the state, relationship between business and the state, etc., in view that the war is over.
Well, I'm really glad you said it so candidly about you mentioned your corruption. You mentioned that there is genuinely a problem and you would be happy to address it. That's a lovely statement that it's so candid. I'd also like to ask you here, see, there's a saying that you cannot wish away your neighbors. So Russia is always going to be your neighbors. Do you think at any point of time you would consider making a peace in some form in terms of trade or something with Russia? Because that would inevitably have to be done. You cannot keep your enmity forever to be safe.
You just said me. I'm brave to mention corruption. I think that maybe there is only one state in the world, maybe where there is no corruption, and this is Vatican, I guess, the Holy See, right? Because all the rest of the world definitely have some corruption. It's So we are fighting this, by the way. And since the last, last 6 years, we have huge achievements in fighting corruption, in fighting the inequality and things. So that's true, and we'll be moving on that way. Regarding Russia, well, yeah, you know what? My feeling is the Ukrainian people must learn the lesson and must understand forever and ever that Russia will always be there. And Russia will always be hostile and aggressive. That's a default line. they will always be hostile and aggressive toward us. And even if they say, oh no, we are not, no, Russia will be preparing to fight Ukraine anytime in the future. That's the axiomatic psychology. We have to learn it. All of us, all Ukrainians say, no, Russians are not good neighbors, are not good friends, are not true friends, are not sincere people. We have to prepare for the worst. That's what we should do, at least in the next 50 years. So we should prepare, we should build up the strong army, we should build up the strong borders, well protected against any invasion, any attack. We should be ready to deal with any air attacks, missiles or drones or anything. And what's very important, we have to be capable of striking back immediately without thinking or whatever. That's how the world is built. If you look at the like animals world, I forgot this African guy who you know, with a lot of needles, some like hedgehog. I forgot this name.
Porcupine.
Yeah, it could be. So even leopards and tigers are afraid of him because he'll just boom, and then okay, this guy is dangerous. Like honey badger, oh come on, just leave it alone because it's dangerous. It's small. It's like it looks nice, but it's dangerous. Leave him alone. That's what we want from Russia to think about Ukraine. Honey badger, leave him alone. We don't want the wasp, the hornet, the bees, beehoof. Oh, no, it's Ukrainians. Come on, we don't. That's the impression we should leave to every Russian. That's what how we have to deal with them.
I'll come to the last question, which is about a kind of an extraordinary phenomenon that has also happened during this war. It's called the Bucha witches. Lots of ordinary housewives, middle-class women who formed an air defense unit, people who were cooks or seamstresses or tailors, they trained themselves and formed a air defense unit, which was very successful in fighting Russia. Would you like to talk a little bit about how many people are there, how did they form, and what success have they achieved?
At present, we have around 70,000, if I'm not mistaken, about 70,000 women serving in the army. Out of them, around 20,000 are in the direct, like militarized zone, so military zone, directly fighting in the front line. So it's like, it's huge amount of people, and it's not like one group or two groups, one midwife. All those girls and ladies, and they basically yesterday's teachers and housewives and whoever, right? Yeah, medical servants and you know, anyone. It can be anyone, and we could see even politicians. I would not say the middle class. There will be upper class, lower class, middle class. In Ukraine, we are basically more or less the same. It's not a big difference between like upper and lower class. Like, you know, all people are pretty good, pretty equal and things. So this is I think it's very natural phenomenon, right? So whatever you call it, Valkyria or witches or something, that's doesn't make a big difference. When the war started, I remember that, okay, the most endangered places at that time were like Odessa, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Kyiv. So these cities, Kherson and Mykolaiv, of course, so these cities were under direct fire because they were so close from the front line. And there were tanks and there were cannons and there were like groups of armed people. And these cities, many of them, like Sumy and Chernihiv, were under siege for some time. They were like literally cut all the supplies. They were not be able to evacuate anyone from those places, blah, blah, blah. But at this time, including in Kiev, the whole nation fought. It was the whole population resisted. Those who could do anything, they did. The disabled people were composing the bottles for the Molotov cocktails. The homeless people collecting the bottles, bringing them there. The kids were mixing the substance, or bringing food to the adults. Women were cooking, like, feeding the people the whole nation fought. So every Molotov cocktail that destroyed Russian tanks or the armored vehicles or just Russians in the first weeks and months of the war, it was a collective product of the society, of the nation. From the children of 7 years old who can be commanded, bring this, get this, and that. Women, disabled, retired, everyone. So that's the phenomenon of Ukrainian nation. It's the phenomenon of the people who resist, who don't want to die, who don't want to give up their freedoms and their lives effectively to the aggressors. That's it. And that's how they survived. That's how they protected the cities. We're on huge price of the lives and the destruction and everything, but they did it. So Russians never occupied Kharkiv or Sumy or Chernihiv or Mykolaiv or Odessa. Never. And in here, the huge contribution is by our army, and a huge contribution, no less than that, by our civilians, volunteers, and commoners, just commoners, unarmed, untrained, And this, yes, you talk about the ladies, the Bucha witches. I remember the guys who were IT managers, really top IT managers. In no time, in a couple of days, they organized production of the drones, kamikaze drones, in huge numbers. They just build it from the kids' toys, you play with these toys, small things. They make it this explosive packages, and bam, explode, and then they grew up into serious regiments, serious units of the army eventually. But they started from the people who were just they found the gamers, they found the chemist, teacher for chemistry, and the gamers who really played the tanks and whatever, CS:GO, and they created the full capacity military unit. This is how a nation fights. How this nation survives. Like our president, for example, that's a good example of that. The carrier, he's the you can like it, you can dislike it, you can criticize him, you can criticize his decision, but he's the carrier of this idea of resistance. He is the hero of this resistance now. And this is very important, so people know him. He's everywhere. He's visiting the front lines. He's visiting the most dangerous places. He is having iftar with the Muslims during Ramadan. He is he is a real leader of this nation, right? And in the future, if we are united, I repeat, I think I told you already, right? So it's not about killing Russians, fighting. We will be having the reparations definitely paid by Russia for what they did. We will need they to kneel and beg for pardon, for mercy, not only from Ukraine, not only to Ukraine, but to all the humankind, what they did. But still, the idea is, we understand that they will always be there, dangerous, armed, and aggressive. And we have to do all the best we can, never again to treat them as we treated them in the last 30 years, like 20 years, that all Russians are friends, good neighbors, like brothers and sisters. No, never again. They will be treated as aggressive, potentially very dangerous, potentially very aggressive people. So we have to be very strong to protect ourselves and our future against them. That's it.
A great pleasure talking to you, Vasyl, and so wonderful that you always come up with very profound things to say and very honest things to say, very candid way in which you always answer. Great
Thank you,
pleasure.
Jaya. Thank you.
I hope everything great goes peacefully from here on. It is only better from here on, and your country again progresses without having to fear anymore.
Glory to the
Slava
nation.
Ukraini!
Yes, to